Let's speak with Alena Kudzko, Vice President of the Slovak NGO GLOBSEC. Alena, thank you so much for joining us. We see both parties, they have scored around 20% of backing, which means the winner will need help from a majority coalition. Who's got the best shot at this stage of securing the favor from the smaller parties and gaining that vote?
We just received the first exit polls, which might or might not be correct. And the exit polls show that the Progressive Slovakia Party is slightly ahead of Robert Fico's Smer party. But then the picture becomes very complicated. We still don't have certainty about how many parties will make it to the parliament because they need to pass 5% threshold. And that would determine the coalition options. If Progressive Slovakia indeed ends up being first when all the votes are counted, they will have the first shot at trying to form the government. They would probably need about 3 or 4 parties to be able to form the government.
And obviously a huge bearing on what the position would be then regarding Ukraine. Can you just give us a more thorough overview of what the results would mean in terms of impacting Slovakia's position with its neighbor?
During the election campaigns, there were roughly 2 blocks of parties. On the one side, there was a bloc of the more nationalist conservative parties, led primarily by Robert Fico's Smer party, who campaigned on the narrative that we need to stop the war in Ukraine as soon as possible. We need to stop military aid to Ukraine because, according to them, it only prolongs war. And we need to make sure that Russia and Ukraine sit down at the negotiating table as soon as possible. According to them, it will help also European economy and things will go back to normal in Europe as well. But on the other side, there is the bloc of parties led by the Progressive Slovakia Party, but also other smaller parties who say that, no, we need to make sure that we continue support to Ukraine. It's important for us because Ukraine is also defending our borders. And they're seriously worried that if we let Russia think that they can invade other countries without pushback, Slovakia might be next on the list.
And now, obviously, going back to Robert Fico, he's not been far from controversy, both in his time in charge and then after. How has he managed to garner the support again and almost go neck and neck with the progressives?
Robert Fico's Smer party, but also other parties, are riding on the wave of frustration among voters that's been accumulating for years. First, of course, we have the general frustration that people have around Europe and the Western world. People are not entirely happy with globalization, with the fact that they cannot control things in their own country. But then we also had pandemic. People were asked to make sacrifices. After that, we had the war in Ukraine, and they were told that we need now to direct our effort to helping Ukrainians. So there are a lot of frustrated voters right now who want to push their government to put their country first. Slovaks want Slovakia to come first. And so the vote that Robert Fico managed to assemble, it's the vote of frustration and resentment.
And just one last question. What can we now expect in terms of the progress of the vote? What's the next step?
The results of the votes will be arriving over the next hour. So we should know probably by tomorrow which parties have how many votes, and then the coalition talks will begin. It's very unclear how long it's going to take, exactly because that coalition will have to be assembled from divergent parties with very different views, policies, and ideologies. So it might be a messy process.
A massive process, which we will definitely keep an eye on, and we will have all those results as they come. Thank you so much, Alena. That's Alena Kudzko. She is here, the Vice President of the Slovak NGO GLOBSEC, and I'm sure she will be also keeping an eye on everything that's going on down in Bratislava.